Madam Chairperson, we thank Acting Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Ramiz Alakbarov, and High Representative of the Peace Council for Gaza, Nikolai Mladenov, for their briefings. We listened attentively to Ms. Athena Rader. Madam Chairperson, the assessments and evidence presented today highlight the dangerous trajectory of the situation in the occupied Palestinian territory.
With all the tragic consequences this entails for both sides in the conflict and the entire region, the events of recent months clearly demonstrate that the lack of progress on the Palestinian-Israeli track is fraught with further suffering and loss of civilian life, escalation, and the emergence of new flashpoints throughout the Middle East. We all remember how the majority in this room pinned their hopes on the adoption of Council Resolution 2803 and support for Trump's peace plan across all parties. We would also like to remind you that our country, largely at the request of our friends in the Arab Muslim world, did not obstruct the approval of this document. At the same time, we provided a detailed analysis of all the pitfalls of such a hasty decision by the Council and warned of the risks of ignoring the broad, internationally recognized legal framework for Middle East governance and its key element, the two-state formula. The fact that, thanks to active international mediation efforts, the large-scale bloodshed in Gaza was stopped is undeniable and deserves our full support. Unfortunately, however, it's still too early to talk about a lasting peace in the Gaza Strip. Violations of the ceasefire in Gaza and the killing of Palestinians continue systematically, 10 months after the agreement formally came into effect. This is clearly demonstrated by the statistics. The death toll from Israeli attacks since October 10, 2025, is approaching 1,300. According to the daily reports from the Israeli Defense Ministry, serious difficulties remain on the humanitarian front. The Israeli occupation and restrictions on imports, aid, and construction materials have placed the Strip's 2 million residents under severe pressure. People are forced to cram into less than 50% of the enclave's total area. Nearly every family struggles to find food, and over 70% of Palestinian children under 2 years of age are fed unhealthy diets. Other key provisions of the peace plan also remain on paper, including the launch of the National Gas Management Committee and the deployment of an international stabilization force in the Strip. It's also clear that any practical steps regarding the possible launch of reconstruction work in the Strip are currently not being discussed. Madam Chairperson, let's be factually accurate. Over the past few months, we've heard that progress on the aforementioned issues will become possible immediately after Hamas agrees to begin the phased demolition, in conjunction with the withdrawal of the Tzahal units. However, Israel has no intention of withdrawing Tzahal from the Strip. Nikolai Mladenov also spoke about the key nature of this principle of reciprocity in his May report to the Security Council. We note the efforts of the High Representative of the Peace Council on gas to prepare a corresponding roadmap, which the Islamic movement agreed to implement, while the Israeli leadership publicly rejected it. We regret that some of those present in the council chamber, for one reason or another, continue to gloss over the real picture of what's happening around gas. Perhaps they should listen to the sensible voices of those countries that are also members of the Peace Council. They were also cited today. Specifically, we are referring to the recent statements by the Minister of State Affairs and the Arab Muslim G8 on August 16, which collectively condemned Israel's position and placed full responsibility on West Jerusalem for undermining efforts to improve the situation in Gaza and the rest of the occupied police territory in West America and Kiev. Public statements by prominent Israeli political figures, as well as the plans and concrete steps of the government, confirm West Jerusalem's lack of desire to move toward de-escalation and compliance with the international legal framework of the Israeli civil war. The Israeli ministers of national security and finance speak of the need to kill 30 to 40 Gazians daily and to evict the residents of the enclave from the planned settlement there. At the same time, we are recording negative developments in the Nazbri region, including East Jerusalem, where Israeli authorities are consistently pursuing a policy of strengthening their administrative and legal control in violation of Council Resolutions 23 to 34. The Netanyahu government's settlement activity is breaking all records, as the Prime Minister regularly informs us. Of particular note is the I-1 development plan, approved in 2025, which will cut the Palestinian territories in two and undermine the territorial integrity of the State of Palestine. Along with many responsible countries, Russia condemns West Jerusalem's provocative policy and calls for an end to settlement activity, whether within the I-1 project or in other parts of the occupied territory. Equally alarming is the fact that this policy of creating irreversible realities on the ground is accompanied by unprecedented levels of violence among Israeli settlers, ongoing IDF raids, extensive restrictions on the movement of Palestinians, and the infringement of their rights to basic services. In this regard, we cannot fail to mention West Jerusalem's destructive policy toward Vapor, which remains the core structure for providing comprehensive assistance to both Palestinian residents and Palestinian refugees in the region. We call on the Israeli authorities to fully comply with their obligations as the occupying power, to cease arbitrary raids on Vapor facilities, in particular the training center in Qalandia, and to generally ensure the unimpeded work of UN staff within the framework of their mandate. We are convinced that the agency's mission must continue until a final peaceful settlement of the conflict entails the establishment of an independent, sovereign state of Palestine within the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital, coexisting in peace and security with Israel. We consistently believe that lasting peace and equal security can and must be achieved through the resumption of direct dialogue between the opposing parties on all remaining contentious issues, based on a comprehensive international legal framework and the formula of two states for two peoples. Our country, as before, is ready to cooperate with all constructively minded partners in the interests of correcting historical injustice and supporting the efforts of the regional leaders themselves in their quest to build a prosperous and free administrative center for the Middle East.